The two stood facing each other with unfriendly gazes. The woman crossed her arms, looking at the man before her with disdain, while he appeared relaxed and indifferent. The intensity of their stares made the atmosphere in the room tense and heavy. They had decided to live in Jungkook's grand mansion after a wedding earlier that day, one they didn't want in the first place. Park Yin and Jeon Jungkook, children of Korea's most notorious mafia families, had no choice but to accept an arranged marriage made by their parents. There was no reasonable excuse to refuse, so they were forced to go along with it. Even though we're married, it doesn't mean we have to act like a real married couple, Yin began the conversation. They were speaking on the second floor. No one dared to step foot there without Yin or Jungkook's permission. Jungkook looked at Yin with an unreadable expression, playing with a lighter in his hand. "Then what do you want?" he asked coldly. "I also never expected our relationship to be like other couples." Yin and Jungkook had attended the same university, same major, same class. They had never gotten along. Not a single day passed without them arguing or competing to be the best. Their friends were already tired of their endless bickering. Neither of them ever wanted to lose, and yet, they were both popular, smart students with plenty of admirers. No one would have guessed that they'd end up married. Even now, they still couldn't accept it. "I can't be nice or warm to someone as annoying as you," Yin said. "And since when have you ever been nice to anyone?" Jungkook shot back. He was deliberately provoking her. Yin never had many friends. She often kept to herself, avoiding crowds. She was known as an arrogant yet captivating girl, mysterious and reserved, just like Jungkook. Additionally, Yin was also physically strong. Many men had fallen victim to her punches for daring to flirt with her. She was a tough girl whose appearance remained graceful, like that of a goddess. Yin scoffed. Jungkook clearly never wanted to lose. He always had a way of twisting her words, and that only made Yin even more annoyed. He was the only one bold enough to constantly challenge her. "I don't need friends who only want to use me," she said, her eyes landing on a family photo of Jungkook displayed on the second floor. In the photo were his father, mother, and a young Jungkook, all smiling brightly at the camera. Without realizing it, her hands clenched into fists. "I can stand on my own." Jungkook frowned, confused by her sudden shift in tone. Yin was hard to read and extremely private, while Jungkook was used to facing his enemies, especially after inheriting his father's position as mafia leader. Something about Yin made her harder to deal with than anyone else. "That includes you," she continued. "I don't want us to be close. We got married only to satisfy our parents' egos. I'm sure neither of us truly wanted this." Jungkook chuckled, leaning forward with a mocking look in his eyes. "You're right. There's no way I'd fall in love with someone like you. As long as you don't change your attitude, no one will ever want you. I don't like arrogant women like you." Yin clenched her fists again. She'd managed to endure things until now. There was no way she'd let Jungkook disturb her peace. "Good. I'm glad you won't fall in love with me," she said coldly. "That'll make our marriage easier. I won't have to pretend to be nice to you." Jungkook gave a bitter smirk, straightening up. "You've never changed, still arrogant and stubborn as ever." Yin shrugged indifferently and turned her head toward the master bedroom, which the maids had likely prepared. "I want us to sleep in separate rooms," she said, meeting his gaze. "I refuse to share a bedroom with you." Her words genuinely surprised him. It was clearly a declaration of war. After all, he was a normal grown man, and her rejection bruised his pride. Fine, he wouldn't beg this woman for anything. "All right, I don't want to share a bedroom with someone like you either," he replied, staring at her sharply. "Since I'm the man here, I'll let you have the master bedroom. How about that? Isn't your husband generous?" Yin rolled her eyes. "Wow, I'm honored, Mr. Jungkook. Turns out you still have a heart for a woman," she said sarcastically. Jungkook snorted. He knew she was being sarcastic. This woman had a sharp tongue. No wonder she had been a favorite among the professors back then. "We'll share a bedroom when there's love between us." "There will never be love between us," Yin retorted immediately. "I don't believe in love. Love is nothing but a fairy tale. No two people truly fall in love. It's just a made-up story." Jungkook was taken aback by her words. Her eyes remained sharp as they met his. He was curious. What made her think that way? Because for him, love was real. He had seen it firsthand in his own parents, who still cared deeply for each other. He didn't know much about Yin's background, other than the fact that she was from a mafia family and that her mother had died when she was still young. That was all he knew. But he wasn't going to ask this arrogant woman, not yet at least. Jungkook nodded. "All right, suit yourself," he said, glancing at the wall clock. It was already 11 p.m., and they hadn't rested since morning because of all the guests. "There's no end to this conversation of yours. Better we stop now and save our energy for tomorrow," he said dryly. "You're wrong. We're not having a conversation," Yin replied. "We're just stating our thoughts, so this marriage doesn't cross any boundaries." Yeah, whatever you say. I'm tired," Jungkook said, heading toward the smaller bedroom. Before entering, he paused and glanced at her. "Oh, my advice for you. Don't try too hard to hold yourself back. Just let things flow naturally." Then, he disappeared behind the door. Yin stood still for a moment. She closed her eyes before finally entering the master bedroom. The clinking sound of spoons and forks echoed in the dining room. At the large table filled with a complete spread of dishes, only two people sat in silence. Whether they were enjoying their breakfast or simply too lazy to talk, it was unclear. Yin ate calmly. As usual, she looked graceful and captivating, even in simple home clothes. Beautiful and charming, something Jungkook had never denied, even in the past. But unfortunately, all of that was overshadowed by Yin's arrogant attitude. "I'll be coming home late often," Jungkook said after finishing his meal. "I don't care," Yin replied indifferently, pushing her plate away, signaling she was also done eating. Jungkook clicked his tongue. Why couldn't this woman be a little gentler? It had already been a week since they started living together, yet she was still cold as ever. "I was just letting you know. Maybe you'll end up looking for me," Jungkook said confidently. Yin gave a sarcastic smile, crossing her arms. "There are far more interesting things than waiting for a man like you." Once again, Jungkook's ego took a hit. Yin always had a way of saying things that could shake his confidence, even if only for a moment. Only Yin dared to talk to him like that, while all other women worshipped him. Jungkook scoffed. "I'm more convinced now why no one can stand being around you. That's why you don't have any friends." Yin shrugged, completely unbothered by his words. She'd heard things like that too often to be offended, and she didn't care. Yes, she wasn't supposed to care. That's what she kept telling herself. Their lives continued as usual. No romantic interaction, and no signs of attraction between them. Despite the mansion being lively with bodyguards and maids, the atmosphere turned cold whenever Yin and Jungkook crossed paths. "You still don't want to go out?" Jungkook asked one Sunday morning. The question halted Yin's steps as she was about to head to the mansion's backyard garden. She turned around, her beautiful eyes locking onto Jungkook's with a gaze that was both sharp and melancholic. "What for?" she asked flatly. Jungkook frowned. Yin was truly strange. "Don't you get bored spending every single day in the house?" Jungkook, after all, was the type who easily got restless, staying indoors too long. His work constantly brought him outside, involving various people, arms trade, and managing a major casino business in Korea. "Wow, are you worried about me?" Yin chuckled sarcastically. Jungkook scoffed and stood up as well. He slipped both hands into the pockets of his pants. The black shirt he wore made him look even more attractive. If it had been any other woman standing in front of him, they would have screamed in delight just from the breathtaking sight. "I was just asking. No need to read into it," Jungkook replied coolly. "You don't need to waste your energy asking useless things," Yin shot back before walking away, leaving Jungkook staring at her with a complicated look. He let out a tired sigh. It was incredibly difficult to enter Yin's world. Deep down, as someone now married, Jungkook longed for a harmonious marriage like his parents. But Yin refused to cooperate, even though Jungkook had already begun to lower his pride. He didn't hate her. Yin was far too precious to be hated. In fact, she was the one woman who could actually match him. Yin was the only woman who had, to some extent, caught his attention, the only one whose presence he always noticed, when he'd never cared about any other woman before. If only Yin would open her heart a little, and let Jungkook in, he was certain their marriage could work. Meanwhile, Yin hurried to the shooting practice area located in the backyard of the mansion. She had her own routine while staying there, practicing archery, shooting, boxing, and working out. Fortunately, all those facilities were already available in the mansion. "You have to be strong, Yin. You must be able to protect yourself. You can't rely on anyone else," she reminded herself silently, as her hands aimed steadily at the target, ready to pull the trigger. The deafening sound of gunfire echoed through the air. Every shot hit the mark. Yin smiled in satisfaction. She was still as tough as ever. Meanwhile, from inside the mansion, Jungkook could clearly hear the gunshots coming from the practice area in the back. He knew Yin could shoot very well, but somehow today, the sound of the shots felt more intense, more emotional. He glanced toward the large window facing the backyard, then let out a sigh. She's letting it out again, Jungkook murmured quietly, then leaned back on the sofa. From the start, he knew Yin wasn't an ordinary woman, not just because of her family background, but because Yin always had her own way of thinking, which she never shared with anyone. That girl was too good at hiding everything and far too hard on herself. Jungkook stared blankly ahead. He often wished he could just talk properly with Yin, understand her thoughts, and get just a little closer. But every time he tried, Yin would always draw a line he couldn't cross. Jungkook sighed in frustration. Why is it so hard for us to talk like normal people? He muttered to himself as if Yin could hear him from a distance. Yin was sitting on the side terrace sofa of the mansion when Jungkook came home. Yin only glanced at him briefly before returning to the fashion magazine on her lap. Like most women, Yin also liked fashion. She always stayed up to date with the latest trends. Everything she wore was far from cheap. Everything was branded and expensive. Jungkook sat next to her, leaning slightly to peek at what she was reading. He raised one eyebrow. So you can act like a real woman too, he said with a smile. Yin glanced at him. You think I'm a man? Jungkook shrugged. But your attitude doesn't have any sweetness like a woman. Maybe you're a man trapped in a woman's body, he said carelessly. Deep down, he was only teasing. Yin scoffed, still focused on her magazine. Oh, so you think a woman has to be sweet and flirty? Only then do you consider her a real woman? Jungkook chuckled softly. A woman should naturally be softer than a man. I never asked you to be a flirty woman. That's not my type anyway. But at least can't you be a little warmer and gentler? We're husband and wife, not soldiers ready for war. Yin didn't respond, but her eyes stayed on Jungkook, who had been watching her intensely. For some reason, his gaze this time felt different to her. There was no mischievous smirk or mocking look. His eyes were still sharp but held a certain calmness, and without realizing it, that made Yin's heart race uncontrollably. Feeling slightly nervous, Yin quickly diverted her gaze back to the magazine. She didn't want to be caught staring at him in a situation like this. It made her feel vulnerable, and she didn't want to be a weak woman. Jungkook didn't move. He continued sitting there as if enjoying their quiet time together in the silence. Suddenly, he pulled out his wallet and handed her a black card. I'm your husband. You are my responsibility. I don't want to be the kind of husband who neglects his wife. Yin looked at the black card without interest. She turned her head away, unimpressed. No need. I still have enough money to cover all my needs. So you just keep it. Jungkook cut her off and placed the black card on the table. Use it or not, it's up to you. He stood up as if not wanting to give Yin a chance to argue any further. Yin smirked. All right then. She took the card, then narrowed her eyes at him. I'm going to use this as much as I can until I make you go broke. Jungkook scoffed, but looked like he was trying to hold back a laugh. I won't go broke just from supporting one wife. Just so you know, I have more money and wealth than you can imagine, he said before ruffling Yin's hair and walking away. Yin grumbled quietly, wanting to continue the war of words with him, but the man had already entered the house. She let out a slow sigh, fixing her hair again to make it neat. A few days later, Yin and Jungkook's arrival at Jungkook's parents' mansion was warmly welcomed by his mother. Yena, Jungkook's mother, hugged Yin lovingly. Since they got married 3 months ago, this was the first time they would be staying overnight at Jungkook's parents' mansion. Sweetheart, how are you? So cruel of you not to visit me, Yena said after releasing her hug. Yin grimaced slightly. She was a stiff person by nature, but earlier, she and Jungkook had agreed to at least appear like they were getting along in front of their parents, since they didn't want to deal with added stress or lectures from them. So, Yin tried to be polite. I'm sorry, Mom. Yin glanced at Jungkook. Jungkook's been really busy. That's why we've only just now had a chance to visit. Jungkook raised one eyebrow, feeling accused. His wife was quite clever, using him as an excuse. Still, deep down, he was amused. He knew how stiff and awkward Yin could be with communication. I'm sorry, Mom. Things have been really hectic at work lately. Yena pouted and pinched Jungkook's arm to let out her frustration. Jungkook winced. His mother's pinches hadn't changed, still sharp and painful. You have to learn to manage your time. Poor Yin is always left alone because of your work. Remember, you're married now, Jungkook, his mom reminded him. She knew her son was a workaholic. Yes, Mom, I know, Jungkook replied flatly. If only his mother knew what their marriage was really like. Quietly, Yin tried to hold in a laugh. She found the interaction between mother and son amusing. Hearing her giggle, Jungkook turned toward her in surprise. This was the first time he had seen such a different expression on Yin's face, and it made her look even more beautiful and sweet. Noticing Jungkook's gaze, Yin cleared her throat and tried to control her expression again. She didn't want to act awkward now that Jungkook was staring at her intensely. "Mom, how's Dad doing?" she asked, trying to break the tension. Yena's face turned somber. The reason she asked them to stay over was because Jungkook's father was seriously ill. She had requested they stay for 3 or 4 days until his condition improved, as he kept calling out Jungkook's name as if he missed his son dearly. "He is still very weak," she said softly. The mansion had a special room equipped with medical equipment for caring for the sick. "Yesterday, his heartbeat slowed down. I was so scared." Jungkook's father had suddenly fallen ill 3 days ago, and his condition had been deteriorating ever since. It usually happened when he was overworked and exhausted. "You both can visit him now. Oh, and your bedroom. It's already been cleaned by the maids earlier," his mother said, pointing toward Jungkook's old bedroom from when he used to live there before marrying Yin. Yin and Jungkook exchanged glances. His mother obviously didn't know that they had been sleeping in separate rooms all this time. They had already warned the maids and guards in Jungkook's mansion not to mention anything to their parents. And now, it meant that tonight, for the first time, they would be sleeping in the same room. An awkward atmosphere lingered between Yin and Jungkook. They had just visited Jungkook's father, and now they were in the bedroom. They lay with their backs to each other, the only light in the room coming from the dim bedside lamp. Neither Yin nor Jungkook could fall asleep. Unbeknownst to one another, both were feeling their hearts racing uncontrollably. As the clock neared midnight, Jungkook no longer felt any movement beside him. Yin's steady breathing indicated that she had finally drifted off to sleep. Jungkook shifted his position to lie on his back, folding both arms behind his head to support it. The stillness of the night lingered in the room. Only the ticking of the clock and the faint sound of wind brushing against the window could be heard. Jungkook remained in the same position, staring at the ceiling, when he suddenly felt movement from beside him. Yin was starting to grow restless in her sleep. Her body shifted uneasily, her hand occasionally clutching the blanket tightly. Her brows were furrowed, and her breathing turned ragged. Jungkook turned to look, watching her closely. "Yin," he murmured softly, wanting to wake her up, but he waited, hoping it would pass and she'd settle down again. But the restlessness only intensified. Suddenly, Yin jolted awake. Her body shot upright, hands gripping the blanket on her lap. Her breathing was labored as if she had just been running. Her hair was a mess, and her eyes still held traces of fear from the dream that had just woken her. Jungkook sat up too. "You had a nightmare?" he asked gently, his voice low, careful not to make her even more anxious. Yin didn't respond right away. She closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing and calm her thoughts. Then slowly but firmly, she said, "I'm fine. It's none of your business." The words sounded cold, but Jungkook could hear the slight tremble in her voice. He only looked at her. He wanted to say something, but he knew that pushing her would only make her retreat further. Not long after, Yin lay back down again, turning her back to him. She hugged herself, trying to soothe the fear that still clung to her. Jungkook remained sitting, watching her back in silence. Deep down, he knew Yin was carrying something she couldn't share. But for the first time, he truly wanted to be someone she could talk to, not just as a husband, but as someone who genuinely cared. Unfortunately, his wife kept shutting him out. The next night, the second night at Jungkook's family mansion arrived with a similar atmosphere. The cold air from the AC brushed against their skin, and the bedside lamp still glowed dimly, casting faint shadows on the bedroom wall. Jungkook lay in silence, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. For some reason, ever since the incident the night before, he had become more alert to Yin's every movement. And sure enough, around midnight, Yin started to grow restless in her sleep again. Her body twisted uneasily. Her face looked troubled, as if she was holding back pain. Her breathing quickened, even heavier than the night before. At times, faint murmurs escaped her lips, inaudible, yet full of tension. Jungkook immediately sat up, eyes filled with concern as he looked at her. "Yin," he whispered gently, but she didn't wake. Her hands clenched over her chest, beads of sweat forming on her temples. "Yin, wake up. You're having another nightmare," he said more firmly, gently shaking her shoulder. Within seconds, Yin jolted awake. She sat up abruptly, gasping for breath, her eyes filled with fear. Her hair was disheveled, and her body trembled slightly. Just like the night before, she looked disoriented and exhausted. This time, Jungkook looked at her intently. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, holding back the urge to touch her. knowing how much she guarded her space. Yin didn't answer right away. Her eyes stared blankly ahead. She just sat there, trying to steady her breath, until finally, she drew in a deep breath and said, "I told you, I'm fine." Her tone remained cold, but her voice was hoarser than last night, like someone who was tired of carrying everything alone. "If you're really fine, then why does this keep happening every night?" Jungkook finally spoke, unable to hide the concern in his voice. Yin stayed silent. Her shoulders rose and fell with each shaky breath. Then slowly, she lay back down, turning her back to him like she always did. "Don't ask again," she whispered faintly. Jungkook clenched his jaw slightly. He knew there was a wound inside her that wouldn't be easy to heal. But how could he help her if she kept shutting him out? The night passed with suffocating silence, sharing the same bed, but trapped in their own worlds, bound by marriage, yet separated by invisible walls. Jungkook sighed quietly. Fine, if Yin wouldn't tell him the truth, then he would find out on his own. Ever since that night at his parents' mansion, Jungkook couldn't stop thinking about Yin's condition. He had been reflecting on many things. On the surface, Yin was still acting like her usual self, calm, composed, like nothing had happened. But Jungkook was convinced that something wasn't right with his wife. Her closed-off nature made things even more difficult for him. He couldn't concentrate at work. He needed answers fast, before he lost his mind. His curiosity about Yin was consuming him. That's why, 2 days ago, he had ordered one of his men to investigate her background further. But the only information Jungkook received was that Yin lived with her father and had lost her mother when she was just 8 years old. Her family had done an exceptional job at keeping their private lives hidden from the world. Jungkook stood uncertainly in front of the master bedroom door. Taking a deep breath, he turned the handle. It wasn't locked. Slowly, he stepped inside his wife's room for the very first time. A soft scent of lavender welcomed his senses. His eyes scanned the room, but Yin wasn't there. The sound of water stopping caught his attention. He turned toward the brown door in the corner. It seemed his beautiful wife was still in the bathroom. The door opened. Yin walked out with her head down, busy towel drying her wet hair. When she looked up and saw Jungkook standing near her bed, she gasped in surprise. "What are you doing here?" Yin asked flatly. She was actually nervous, but she covered it well. Jungkook blinked, momentarily stunned. She had just come out of the bathroom in nothing but a bathrobe. Her hair was wet, her long legs were exposed, the robe only reaching just above her knees, and the scent of soap lingered in the air. Jungkook had to fight with every ounce of restraint not to lose his self-control right then and there. "I need to talk to you." Yin glared at him coldly. "You're being rude. You came into my room without permission," she said as she turned and walked into the walk-in closet. She needed to get changed quickly before Jungkook started staring more intensely. Jungkook shrugged and sat calmly on the sofa, waiting for her. Eventually, she came out wearing more modest clothes. But even then, the image of her in that bathrobe lingered in his mind. "What do you want to talk about?" Yin asked. "I don't have much time. I need to rest," she added icily. Jungkook scoffed. He was used to Yin's cold demeanor. Adjusting his position, he turned to face her completely. "This time, I want you to be honest with me. I've thought long and hard, but I still haven't found any answers." Yin rolled her eyes lazily. "You're beating around the bush. What do you really want to ask?" Jungkook exhaled slowly. "What's really going on with you?" he finally asked. "You've been having nightmares every night. Is that why you didn't want to share a room with me from the beginning? Were you trying to hide it from me?" "You came here just to ask me that?" Yin replied flatly. "What a waste of time. You won't get any answers." "It's not important," she said, her gaze sharp. "Didn't I tell you not to worry about me?" Her indifferent tone triggered Jungkook's frustration. He felt disrespected as a husband. Of course, he was worried about her. He had even tried to dig into her past but came up with nothing. As her husband, he had promised Yin's father that he would take care of his only daughter. But Yin still didn't see him as her husband, not even now. His jaw clenched, his face flushed with anger, his stare hardening. "Yin, can't you be kind to me even a little? Why do you always brush off my concerns? I'm your husband. You're my responsibility." Yin stood up, eyes fierce as she met his glare. Her body trembled slightly from the intensity of Jungkook's voice, but she held her ground. "This conversation is over. You should leave. I want to sleep." But before she could turn away, Jungkook grabbed her wrist. She froze. "You think you can just run away like this?" Jungkook asked in a low voice. "You don't get to leave me like this after driving me insane," he hissed, frustration evident in his tone. Yin yanked her hand away harshly. She was furious that Jungkook had dared to touch her. Her heart was pounding out of control. You're getting too involved in my life, Jungkook. You're violating my privacy, she snapped. Taking a deep breath, she lifted her chin and said coldly, "We got married without love. It was all forced from the beginning." She paused, locking eyes with him. "I want a divorce." Hearing Yin's sharp words felt like a hammer slamming into Jungkook's chest. The word divorce echoed in his head. His breath quickened, and his eyes stared at Yin without blinking. This had gone too far. "So, your solution is to run away?" Jungkook's voice was deep, but laced with bitterness. Yin turned her gaze away, refusing to answer, but her silence only fueled Jungkook's anger further. He stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Yin tried to remain calm, even though his gaze was intimidating. "You think you can just come into my life and leave that easily?" His voice rose, though still restrained. "I've tried to be patient. I've tried to understand you, but you won't even give me a single chance. Because there's nothing for you to understand." Yin snapped, her voice cracking. Her eyes were watery, but she fought hard to hold back her tears. "I don't need your pity. I don't need to be controlled, and I don't need you meddling in my life. I'm not a stranger, Yin." Jungkook slammed the small table beside the bed, making Yin flinch. "I'm your husband. I have the right to know why you wake up with nightmares every night, why you keep pushing me away, why you want a divorce even before we truly live together." A suffocating silence filled the room. Yin turned her face, biting her lip to hold in all the emotions welling up. Jungkook took a deep breath. His voice was calmer now, but it pierced deeper. "Do you know what it feels like to always be doubted, kept at a distance, like your existence means nothing more than trash, even though she's my own wife?" His gaze cut through Yin's defenses. "I may not be perfect, but I'm human. I have a heart." Slowly, the tears Yin had been holding back finally fell. Her body started to tremble. She couldn't hold it in anymore, yet she still refused to speak. Jungkook saw that, and for the first time, he didn't feel angry. He felt broken. "This is all pointless. I've told you, it's pointless. We should just get divorced. The sooner, the better," Yin said, her voice trembling. "Those same words coming out of your mouth again?" Jungkook said as he stepped closer. "All right, we'll get a divorce," he smirked, "but before that, I'm going to make love to you tonight." Yin's eyes widened, staring at him in disbelief. "What do you mean?" Jungkook smiled with a victorious smirk after seeing Yin's pale face. "You're my wife. Since the beginning of our marriage, everything about you has been mine. It would be such a waste if we divorced without me enjoying your body first." Jungkook smirked, wetting his lower lip. "I didn't expect you to have such dirty thoughts." Jungkook chuckled, not offended by Yin's words. "I think it's a normal thought for a grown man who's already married." "I don't want to." Yin tried to pull away, but Jungkook had already grabbed her hand and pushed her body onto the bed. Yin naturally resisted, but her strength was no match for Jungkook's. Despite Yin regularly exercising and training to strengthen herself, her strength was nothing compared to Jungkook's. "Jungkook, let go of me." Yin's curses went unnoticed by Jungkook. He smirked, tightening his grip. He locked both of her hands, and Jungkook began kissing her lips roughly. Yin could feel a surge of emotions in his kiss: anger, desperation, disappointment. She could feel them all, and for some reason, her heart felt uncomfortable with her own emotions. Jungkook's kiss had unintentionally moved down to her neck, and his hand had slipped around her waist and back. But at that moment, his movements abruptly stopped. He pulled away from the kiss and looked at Yin, both of them now trying to steady their breaths. Jungkook could feel the roughness of Yin's skin as if it was scarred from burn marks. Jungkook fell silent for a moment, gazing down at Yin, now beneath him, with eyes full of questions. "What is that?" he asked softly, though his voice was now hoarse. Yin didn't respond. She was confused, but too tired to talk, so she chose to avoid his gaze, turning her eyes away. Meanwhile, Jungkook, still hovering above her, continued to stare intently, his brows slightly furrowed, eyes searching her face for answers. His body was tense, but his expression had softened into a mix of concern, confusion, and something deeper he couldn't quite name. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken words and emotions. However, when Jungkook's hand moved again to remove her clothes, that was when Yin realized what he was about to do. His hand slowly reached to open her top, and Yin quickly grabbed his wrist, holding it tightly. "Jungkook, don't," she whispered, her voice soft but firm. Her eyes betrayed a fear she couldn't fully hide. Jungkook raised an eyebrow, confused. "Why? What are you hiding?" he asked, his voice low and growing more intense. The curiosity in his chest burned, and it was becoming harder to hold back the urge to find out. Yin bit her lower lip, doing her best not to look vulnerable in front of him. "There's nothing you need to know," she replied quickly, but her words lacked conviction. Jungkook's gaze sharpened. "There's no point in hiding it anymore, Yin," he said more firmly. "I already know. You can't run from this." Yin's anxiety grew, her grip on his wrist trembling. "Jungkook, please," she tried to plead, but Jungkook was already looking into her eyes, his expression filled with concern and something deeper. "Stop hiding this from me," Jungkook said, his voice softer now, but resolute. "I'm your husband. I have the right to know." The firmness in Jungkook's voice somehow softened Yin's heart this time. At the same moment, she realized just how worried Jungkook was about her, and it made the coldness she had always carried begin to warm, even if just a little. With a sure movement, Jungkook pulled aside her clothing. This time, Yin stayed silent. She didn't know why she allowed it, maybe because she was beginning to feel that her husband truly did care about her. When Jungkook gently turned her body to see her back, his eyes widened in shock as he saw the burn scars covering almost her entire back. Jungkook fell silent for a few seconds, then slowly positioned himself to sit on the bed. His gaze remained fixed on Yin's back, the one he had just seen, covered in burn scars he never imagined would be found on the body of someone who always seemed so strong and independent. "Why? Is there a scar like that?" he asked softly, his voice cautious, as if afraid that even a question might hurt her more. At first, Yin said nothing, her eyes staring blankly at the wall, while she slowly pulled her body away, trying to escape Jungkook's gaze. But Jungkook didn't let her sink into silence. Gently, he coaxed her, one hand softly touching her shoulder, while the other helped her sit against the headboard. "Yin, you're not alone anymore. Talk to me, okay?" he said with a voice full of patience. For a brief moment, Yin's eyes trembled. She quickly pulled the blanket over herself, wrapping it tightly around her body. "It happened when I was a kid," she whispered, unable to meet Jungkook's eyes. "Back then, my parents were fighting. It was during breakfast. I just wanted them to stop fighting." Jungkook listened in silence, his chest tightening with every word Yin spoke. "My dad slammed the table, and my mom was standing with a teapot of boiling hot tea she just made. And when I ran toward them to stop the fight," Yin swallowed, her voice shaking. "The tea spilled onto my back." Jungkook lowered his head, his fists clenched tightly on top of the blanket. His face was full of guilt and anger, not at Yin, but at her past, at the people who had once hurt her. "After that, my mom left without ever looking back at me, not even worried about my injury. And the last news I heard, she died in an accident. I didn't go to the funeral. I didn't want to," Yin murmured quietly, almost as if she was speaking to herself. Jungkook took a deep breath, trying to process everything he had just heard. He looked at Yin again, this time with a much softer and deeper gaze. "So, your parents used to fight a lot?" he asked quietly. Yin slowly shook her head. "Not at first. They loved each other, at least. That's what I saw when I was little. But somehow, things started to change. They started yelling, slamming things, blaming each other. And then, that day happened." Her voice weakened again. "And after that, your mom left?" Jungkook asked, barely believing it. Yin nodded. "She left, right after I got hurt. She didn't even look back, as if I never existed." Her face tensed, but her eyes were glassy. "After that, I never believed in love. If the person who was supposed to love me the most could just walk away, what's the point of love?" Jungkook looked down, his heart heavy. Now it all made sense. Yin's cold demeanor, her fear of closeness, and her desire for divorce. It all stemmed from an old wound that never healed. "Yin," Jungkook's voice was soft and sincere. "I can't heal your past, but I want you to know, not every relationship is like that. My parents, they're still together. They've fought, yes, but they chose to stay, to understand each other." Yin stayed silent. She didn't respond, didn't look at him. She just stared blankly ahead. But Jungkook didn't give up. "If you can't believe in love just yet, at least believe in me. Give me a chance. Give this marriage a chance." He reached out and gently took her cold fingers in his hand. "It's not too late for us to start over." Yin remained quiet. Her mind was in turmoil, flooded with worries and memories she couldn't shake. She wanted to trust Jungkook, but a deep fear lingered within her. She was afraid of making the wrong decision, and if she did fall in love with him, she was scared he would leave her too, just like her mother had, when she needed her the most. Jungkook, who was still sitting beside her, observed her quietly. He could read the doubt in his wife's eyes. Without saying much, Jungkook took a long breath and slowly lay down next to her. He settled on the same bed, then turned to her and spoke in a calm yet firm voice. I'm going to sleep here from now on. We'll sleep together, not as a perfect couple, but as two people learning to trust. Yin turned slightly, giving him a confused look. I'm not going to divorce you, not today, not tomorrow, and hopefully, not ever, Jungkook continued, staring at the ceiling. There was a moment of silence. Now, you should change and get some sleep. You need rest, he said with a small smile. He then closed his eyes, but before fully dozing off, he mumbled softly, if you don't want to wear anything, that's fine too. It'll make it easier for me to cuddle you later. Yin immediately threw a small pillow at him, her face flushed in embarrassment, but she couldn't hide the faint smile on her lips. Jungkook simply chuckled, happy to see a tiny crack forming in the tall walls Yin had built around her heart. And for Yin, somehow, the night felt lighter than usual. She finally picked up her clothes and put them on. Then, she lay down beside Jungkook. This time, they didn't sleep with their backs to each other. Jungkook was lying on his back, and Yin faced him, unconsciously staring at his face as he quietly closed his eyes. Yeah, maybe it wouldn't hurt to open her heart to her husband.